say that Bungie and Destiny 2 have undergone significant changes and setbacks after the launch of the final shape, and don't get us even started on Marathon, well, that would be an understatement. Following layoffs, the developer is focusing on smaller expansions instead of massive yearly drops or episodes, and it all starts with the Edge of Fate. Launching on July 15th for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, the $40 expansion ventures to a new destination with new abilities and loot to earn. However, its arrival also marks a suite of overhauls and changes for Destiny 2 as a whole. So here are 15 things that you need to know before jumping in. New planet. Kepler marks the first time that players will travel outside of the solar system. For reasons unknown, they'll discover the House of Exile, with some new unit types that'll make you go, "They fly now," which houses humans who survived the Golden Age, known as the Ionians, and a mysterious new NPC named Lodi. The latter is a fish out of water who is described as a, quote, long way away from home. What role he'll play is ultimately unknown, but for now, Kepler has an aesthetic that's more akin to Venus than the Pale Heart or Savathun's throne world. Sequence-breaking missions. In fact, Bungie describes it as being similar to Rise of Iron from Destiny 1 in terms of depth, which means you'll discover different secrets and solve puzzles. However, perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Kepler is how players can effectively sequence break the desired progression. Whether this means completing the campaign earlier than intended, tackling missions in a different order, or going places that you weren't supposed to explore so early, Bungie confirms it is intentional. New traversal mechanics. There's no new class or subclass in the Edge of Fate. Instead, players get 3 new traversal abilities: Matter Spark, Matter Morph, and the Relocator. Matter Spark turns you into a ball of arc energy to discover new areas, while Matter Morph can create platforms in mid-air. The Relocator is a cannon that lets you access the Fallen's teleportation network to get around. Each of these can be upgraded for use in combat, or even to facilitate better travel around Kepler, like infinite use of Matter Spark. New 3-player activity. A new 3-player activity also awaits, similar to Vex Incursions and Wellspring, with players battling waves of enemies and bosses around Kepler. You can utilize the new abilities for different mechanics, and completing it grants the chance to earn new exotic armor. However, for some reason, it's technically time limited, which means it may not be around all the time. Power changes. Proud of your 2020 loadout, especially with the added power from the seasonal artifact? Well, great news. It's all going away. Or rather, Bungie is resetting the power grind. Every player will start at 10 power, and the new power band or soft cap is 200, with the max being 450. However, playing at tougher difficulties provides gear with 200 plus power, but that's not all. Seasonal power is no longer tied to the artifact. Instead, you need to progress through challenges across all modes, and yes, that includes PvP, to earn gear with seasonal bonus power, which lets you go beyond that soft cap. This may sound fairly annoying, but the best part is that you can grind power without any limits each week. The seasonal bonus power resets every season. However, the good news is that using a new currency, Unstable Cores, will allow for infusing gear with it into your current setup, meaning you won't have to grind out a completely new optimized set. Armor 3.0. But that's not all. Armor is getting a massive overhaul when the Edge of Fate launches. New armor sets will now drop with set bonuses depending on the number of corresponding equipped pieces. For example, TechSec's 2-piece bonus grants, quote, significantly increased kinetic damage to overshields, combatant shields, and constructs. However, its 4-piece bonus will unleash a disorienting kinetic shockwave if you break an enemy's shield or kill them with kinetic damage. There are also 6 armor archetypes, each prioritizing a primary and secondary stat, while the remaining 4, which we'll get into, are much lower. If you're all about grenades, then get the Grenadier set. If it's about melee damage, then the Brawler set. Archetypes are randomly assigned, so you may get the right set bonus, but not the desired archetype. But wait, there is more. Armor will also have tiers affecting the total stat range when factoring in Masterworking. By taking on increasingly challenging activities, you can get tier 4 or 5 armor. The former offers extra mod energy, while the latter lets you tune the armor. which means taking numbers from other stats and pouring them into another or granting +1 to the 3 lower stats. And while you can still stick with your previous armor setup, the new gear will grant 10% bonus weapon damage and 15% bonus damage resistance, so it is well worth shifting over. Stats revamp. With the change in power, damage numbers are going down significantly, dropping from the hundreds of thousands to the dozens or hundreds, though it wouldn't be surprising if they ventured into the 1,000 at higher power. However, the stats revamp is easily a bigger deal. Mobility, resilience, and recovery are being turned into weapons, health, and class, while discipline, intellect, and strength will be renamed to grenade, super, and melee. Health increases the health gained per orb of light and your flinch resistance. Class reduces your class ability cooldown and increases energy earned for the same from all sources. And weapons improves reload speed, handling, and damage for weapons. Stats cap at 200, and there are no more stat tiers that you need to reach to get specific benefits, with each point providing some benefit. While this means having to focus on a handful of stats instead, crossing the 100 threshold unlocks additional benefits. For example, if your health stat is over 100, you get increases to shield health and recharge rate. For something like melee, the damage dealt is increased in both PvE and PvP. The Portal. The Director, and Destiny 2 in general, have been a bane for new and old players, especially when it comes to choosing what to play. The Portal aims to streamline all of that with sections for solo ops, fireteam ops, pinnacles, and Crucible. You'll be able to matchmake into playlists based on different difficulties, see the rewards, and even how many bonus drops are available. This is where you'll spend time increasing your power with a range of activities available, including some previously released content like the Coil and Savathûn's Spire. Of course, there's also a seasonal hub which will keep track of challenges, weekly ranks, and more. Difficulty modifiers. The other new addition is difficulty modifiers for each activity. When selecting an activity, you can specify a difficulty, from normal being the lowest to ultimate being the highest. Each has a corresponding power for combatants, and while you could run the activity as normal, or even add positive modifiers, difficulty modifiers can increase the challenge and thus the rewards. Some of these modifiers include Avant-Garde, which restricts you to new gear and weapons only, and as you add more, the challenge modifier goes up, while positive modifiers reduce it. The more difficult the activity, the more rewarding it is, including dropping higher tier weapons. Higher tiers equal things like a fully enhanced adept weapon at tier 3, an enhanced origin trait on top of that at tier 4, and at tier 5 enhanced perks on top of those. Target range. After years and years of requests, especially after it took away the Tribute Hall, Bungie is finally adding a shooting range in the tower. You can spawn in different enemy types or champions, have them remain stationary or attacking you, and effectively test out different weapons with damage numbers that should correspond to actual activities. And yes, if you want to test out supers and abilities, that is also possible. New exotic weapons. Thus far, only 2 new exotic weapons have been revealed, but each is intriguing in its own way. Graviton Spike is a new hand cannon with 2 modes, one firing arc shots and the other stasis shots. With precision hits and final blows, you can overcharge the other mode, which can either unleash a lightning strike or a stasis explosion and crystal generation. Third iteration is a scout rifle, which fires a spread of void projectiles from the hip. Aiming down sights not only reduces it, but after a short period, they'll condense into a single amalgamation round, which marks damaged enemies, which then receive additional damage from that gun. Landing precision blows with the round or even slaying marked targets provides true sight and invisibility. Also, instead of reloading, you essentially vent its core to recharge it, though it also recharges when not fired or stowed. There's also New Land Beyond, which is available right now for Ultimate Edition owners, and it's, well, no Land Beyond from Destiny. The same bolt action firing, the same animation canceling for cutting down the time between shots. The biggest difference is its intrinsic perk, the Master, which increases the weapon's damage as you score precision hits until your death. New exotic gear. As for exotic gear, only 3 pieces have been unveiled, 1 for each class. Melis Panoplia is for Solar Titans, specifically the Throwing Hammer mains, where rapidly slaying targets with solar damage or collecting a fire sprite will grant the Forge Master buff. This lets you recall a throwing hammer, and executing a perfect recall creates an explosion while extending the timer of Forge Master. Eunoia is essentially Getaway Artist for Song of the Flame Warlocks, where Helion deals more damage with greater distance and explodes into shrapnel that scorches enemies. Finally, there's Moirai for Strand Hunters, where you throw a threaded spike at a tangle, detonating and returning it to your hand immediately alongside the spike, which should pair well with the Whirling Maelstrom. New artifact perks. This season's artifact focuses on solar, strand, and stasis, like Frost Renewal, where taking critical damage with Frost Armor active will release a freezing burst that also provides Frost Armor to you and any allies close by. You also have Fever and Chill, where rapidly hitting precision shots with a solar weapon grants Radiant, and Frost Armor if you're using a stasis weapon. Tangled Web lets you suspend enemies nearby if you defeat a strand debuffed target and make a tangle. Personally, there are too many worthwhile solar perks to ignore as a warlock, like Radiant Shrapnel, where dealing damage while radiant, or slaying a scorched enemy with a weapon causes it to release damaging solar projectiles that also scorch. But even if you're rocking Sunshot, which you should, and no, I don't care how old it is, there is a lot to choose from. New weapon frames. Rocket sidearms remain one of the most fun archetypes in Destiny 2, so naturally, Bungie's weapons team took it even further with rocket pulse rifles. Yes, they eat through special ammo like crazy, but the damage, based on livestream, looks solid. You also have longbows, which can over-penetrate and deal even more damage, but have longer draw times, and spread hand cannons, which are essentially shotguns and deal the most damage up close. However, perhaps the most exciting new addition is the crossbow. It's a legendary heavy weapon frame, and while it deals substantial damage, that too in an area after colliding with a target, you can pick up the bolt afterwards. As an alternative to Leviathan's Breath, it looks and sounds amazing. New raid. Of course, it wouldn't be a new Destiny 2 expansion without a new raid, but please don't pay too much attention to Renegades potentially not having one. Nothing is known about it except that it goes live on July 19th, 4 days after the expansion's launch. Bungie has noted that completing the legendary campaign will be enough to get your power ready, but whether your gear is ready or not, especially for contest mode, is up to you.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.